Today we are looking at the ritual weapon for the final shape and echoes, the solar precision frame SMG called Perfect Pitch. Now to obtain this weapon, it's pretty easy. You just need to rank up either Zavala, Shax, or Drifter to rank 16, then you can claim the weapon, just like how our previous ritual weapons worked. Now with this being a ritual weapon, it of course has a curated role, that being small bore, light mag, and a stability masterwork, which is always set. And you only have options between the two perks that are present in both column 3 and column 4. Now the way ritual weapons normally works is like there's a perk combination for PvP, and then there's also a perk combination for PvE. Now being the ritual weapon, you also have access to 3 origin trade options. But guys, let's just jump into the stats real quick before breaking down the perks. Here on this SMG, we have 64 range, 56 stability, 20 handling, 28 reload speed, 54 aim assist, 15 zoom, and 15 AE. Now with this having a static roll on it, you're not going to be able to achieve those super high stats. Weapons like Shiora, Unending Tempest, Adjudicator, they can really hit the upper edges of those stat thresholds. Perfect Pitch, considering it's got static rolls, it can't reach that. With that being said though, I do believe the stats are all right. Keep in mind, this is a free-to-play weapon, and it's a ritual weapon. But let's take a look at our perks. In column 3, we have Subsistence and To the Pain. Now, Subsistence reads that defeating targets partially reloads the magazine from reserves, and normally this refills 10% of the mag on weapon kills. But for SMGs and auto rifles, it's better. It refills 17% instead. So for instance, here on Perfect Pitch, each kill is giving us back 5 shots. Now this can be influenced by even backup mag, as that will actually give us 6 shots back, and considering spec mods have been deprecated, backup mag is pretty much what we're all using. Now the other beautiful thing is that this weapon can be enhanced. So guys, we can kick it up a step further and get enhanced subsistence, which gives us 20% of our magazine back on weapon kills. Now I know that on other weapons that kind of benefits you more. You get 10% more ammo back, whereas SMGs and auto rifles only get 3%. Regardless though, 20% is still 20%, and in my opinion, the 3% is worth the enhancement. Now the other perk we have in that third column is To the Pain. This is a new perk that released in the final shape, and it reads, while this weapon is equipped, taking damage increases handling and aim assist until the weapon is stowed, and taking more damage increases the effect. Now the benefits of this can be hard to track in terms of how much extra handling and aim assist that this perk accumulates, but we can go over what we do know. First, To the Pain stacks up to times 10, with each shot being given to me by an AR here, increasing my stacks by 1. Now we tested this with other weapons during our Aisha's Embrace review, and a melee would actually give us times 3 instantly. A sniper shot would give us times 4. A shotgun shot would give us times 6, if of course you lived. But you can see how this plays a major role depending on whatever it is that's damaging you. Now in terms of how much aim assist this gives you, we're not really sure. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's noticeable, and that's all I can really say, guys. As far as like the handling buff, this is something we can measure. For instance, at base with no stacks, ADS takes 18 frames. At times 5, the ADS takes 14 frames, and at times 10, aiming down sights takes 11 frames. I would say if aim assist follows in that same progression, that's pretty substantial. Now, as for the enhanced version, To the Pain reads that taking damage greatly increases handling and aim assist until the weapon is stowed. Now, this does not increase the amount of stacks. It's still times 10 at max. And when we look at the frame counts, again, base was at 18 when aiming down sights, times 5 actually dropped to 13 frames instead of 14 when aiming down sights, and then at times 10, it took 10 frames instead of 11. So it isn't substantially better by no means, or in this case, greatly better. But I will say for my PvP players, I do like this perk. And considering your only other option in this column is Subsistence, pretty sure most of you are going to be rocking To the Pain inside of PvP. Now for our fourth column, we first have Incandescent. Defeating a target spreads Scorch to those nearby. More powerful combatants and opposing guardians cause Scorch in a larger radius. Now each weapon kill is going to cause a solar explosion with a 4-meter radius that applies 30 Scorch stacks to targets, or 40 with Ember of Ashes. Now defeating powerful combatants and guardians increases the explosion radius to 8 meters. Now the enhanced version of this tacks on an extra 5 Scorch stacks. For instance, if you're using Ember of Ashes with enhanced Incandescent, now you're getting 45 Scorch stacks per kill. This is probably the perk most people are going to gravitate towards, as the ad clearing capabilities and solar synergy is just too good. On top of that, it's just incredibly easy to proc. It even synergizes with Subsistence, as incandescent kills can proc Subsistence further, therefore refilling your magazine even more. Now, the other perk that's found in the fourth column is Onslaught. Now, this is a pretty unique one, since the only other SMG that can roll with this is Adjudicator, which is a kinetic precision SMG. Onslaught reads that final blows with this weapon increases its rate of fire. And this can stack up to 3 times, and it lasts for 4.5 seconds. Based on our previous review, though, of Adjudicator, again, at base, perfect pitch shoots at 600 rounds per minute, but at ×1 Onslaught, that goes up to 716 rounds per minute, on top of plus 15 reload speed, and ×2, that goes up to 842 rounds per minute, and plus 25 reload speed, and then at ×3, this amps all the way up to 960 rounds per minute, plus 35 reload speed. Again, this is our own testing here, guys. We went frame by frame, so give or take a few rounds. Now, as for the enhanced version of Onslaught, this simply just increases our timer to 5 seconds, so from 4.5 to 5. Just a little bit of extra time there to squeeze out that damage at a very fast rate of fire. Now, let me just say, I do like Onslaught. I prefer it more on auto rifles. I did like it on Adjudicator, and I like it okay here with Perfect Pitch. And I can see this being more of the play inside of PvP. The problem with Onslaught is if you're not used to how fast this thing will blow your load, you'll find yourself without ammo very, very often. You're also going to be very dependent, despite having Subsistence there, you're going to be very dependent on the reload speed of your weapon. And what I noticed is that even with the increased reload speed from Onslaught, Perfect Pitch still felt slow. So without a doubt, if you're going to go this route, guys, you're going to need a reload mod. And I know most of you are going to be like, well, Cross, why not just use Subsistence? Of course. I'm saying even with Subsistence, you'll find yourself blowing through your load very, very fast. With that being said, when you're at ×3, it's mesmerizing. Shooting an SMG at 960 rounds per minute at this level of impact, it's fun. Now on to our origin traits. We first have Vanguard's Vindication. The final blows with his weapon grant a small amount of health, and this is a very, very small amount. We're talking 10 HP per kill, but maybe that's just enough to keep you alive. Next, we have One Quiet Moment. This is our Crucible origin trait, which reads, grants increased reload speed and handling when out of combat. Kind of sucks in my opinion, but this essentially gives you plus 20 handling and plus 40 reload speed when reloading outside of combat. It's kind of pointless because we want things to help us during combat. Lastly, we have Gun and Run from Gambit, and this reads that rapidly defeating targets with this weapon grants bonus sprint speed. Guardians and powerful combatants and high-value targets grant this bonus quicker. Now, this is a 6.25% increase to our sprint speed, and this lasts for 10 seconds. Not a bad origin trait, especially inside of PvP. Keep in mind, none of these ritual origin traits are supposed to be crazy. They're very general, and that's really what ritual weapons are. They're general weapons, and as Bungie has called it, it's like the 60-70% of a god roll. It's the thing that's the leg up to get you to that god roll that you may be working for. Now, what do I think about Perfect Pitch in both PvE and PvP? Well, guys, I actually think it's a pretty solid option, especially if you're a new player. For my folks that don't have a Callus mini tool or things like No Survivors or Bug Out Bag, Perfect Pitch is really a great alternative. And considering it can get enhanced perks, that makes it all the more valuable. I will say though, it does suffer from being a precision frame, at least inside of PvE. It's not the greatest in terms of DPS. For instance, Perfect Pitch here, along with other precision frame SMGs, have the worst DPS, sitting at 18,169. Adaptives are the next lowest at 19,293 DPS, but keep in mind that's still a whole 1,000 damage more per second than precisions. Aggressives clock in at 19,325, and lastly, we have lightweights, which sit at the top at 20,329. Now, granted, perks do play a role in this, right? But the point is, at base, that's where the archetypes sit, which is the reason why people love Callus mini tool. The problem with Callus is that if you didn't get it crafted during the Year of Lightfall, you have to wait for the Presage mission to enter the exotic rotator in order to try and obtain red borders to craft it. You've got No Survivors, but that's part of Ghost of the Deep Dungeon. And then you got Bug Out Bag, which isn't acquirable anymore, except through maybe like Xur. So that being said, if you don't have any of those other solar SMGs, Perfect Pitch is actually a great alternative. And keep in mind, SMGs did receive a 10% increase in damage against red bar enemies, and it'll serve you pretty good, especially when utilizing Incandescent. Onslaught is also not a bad option, one of which I've utilized inside of PvP. And if you like Adjudicator with Onslaught, you could definitely go that route here with Perfect Pitch. For PvE players though, yes, there are better solar SMGs, but Perfect Pitch is that alternative, easily acquirable ritual weapon that anybody can get right now. Now, for my PvP guys, listen, I love precisions, most notably Shayura's Wrath, and I think for the longest time, Shayura has been the standard of precisions. In our top slot, we have Unending Tempest, which is the precision king there. Now, what precision frames possess is one, their ease of use. Keep in mind that archetype allows for this weapon to shoot very vertically. What this really means, guys, is that the weapon is manageable. Another thing that precision frames possess is their range. However, perfect pitch, stat-wise, is really not in a good place. It's okay, and definitely just fine for PvE, but for PvP, it clocks out at 20.24 meters. Still has the same time to kill values of 0.8 seconds, and yes, Onslaught, of course, amps up that time to kill even more. Times 1 at 0.67 seconds, times 2.57, and times 3.50. But this is where Shayura comes in. If you were to have a Hammerforge, Range Master, Ricochet Round, Shayura's Wrath, we're talking 22 meters. And if you slap on an Adept Range mod, that cranks it up to almost 23 meters. And yes, we do have a new version of Shayura's Wrath. And what Shayura's Wrath possesses this time around is Nadir Focus. That's the origin trait that increases accuracy and range during sustained fire. The point I'm trying to make is, guys, is considering both of these weapons are literally present in the same slot, inside of PvP, Shayura literally beats the piss out of this weapon. Literally 10 out of 10 times. I'm not saying you can't go in there and use Perfect Pitch. I was using it inside of comp, but I would have definitely preferred Shayura. And there's just a number of other perk combinations that are present on Shayura that helps you in 1v1s. I actually like the perk to the pain, and I like Onslaught. But with an SMG, you're in close proximity of your enemies, meaning rarely are you going to come out of that gunfight unscathed, which means by the time you do proc Onslaught and get your health back, unless you have something like One Eye Mask or some other means of getting your health back, you really can't engage with that buff of Onslaught. Now, with that being said, it's different on auto rifles. I love Onslaught on auto rifles because I am at range. I can sit there and tap a target way before I get touched up by a shotgun or before they even start engaging with me, which means I can normally have like 80, maybe 90% of my health and have that stack of Onslaught and immediately look toward another target. And the beautiful thing is I don't have to close the gap like I do with an SMG. I can literally just plant my feet, look at the next target, and even if they're 30 meters from me, I can start doing full damage with my increased rate of fire from Onslaught. The point I'm trying to make is, guys, it's a hard sell on a multitude of levels. I think Perfect Pitch is a fantastic weapon for my PvE players, and for my PvP guys, it's a decent enough SMG, but when we start comparing it to Unending Tempest and Shayura's Wrath, and you see origin traits like Nadir Focus, you start to see who the clear winner is here. So guys, that is it. That is our review. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.